Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Reggie Williams, founder and CEO of Ambrosia for Heads. And with me, I have Jake Payne, our editor-in-chief. And together, this is our What's the Headline podcast. It's been a minute. How you doing, man?
Yo, man, I'm doing good. Like the late great Biz Markie, I need a haircut, But looking at you, man, I could tell you were in the barber in the last week, and I had to travel, so I had to reschedule my appointment, and now I regret that.
Nah, looks good, man. You don't have
you
don't have your normal highlights, but
yeah, that's true. I'll get them soon though. So
oh man. So we typically record on Sunday afternoons, but we thought it more apropos this week to tape on Sunday evening after the Grammys. Both of us missed out on the real-time moment last week at the award show. Boy, oh boy, that was a surreal moment to wake up to on Monday morning. Anything left to say about Will and Jada, man, and Chris Rock?
I really don't think so. We covered the developments on the site. Definitely don't want to, I think it'll be interesting to see what Chris has to say, and he seems to be just kind of leaving that to his upcoming act, like any artist does. I look forward to that. I mean, Chris is on tour right now, but I think that one is a well-beaten path at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think, and I've said this in my group chat, which is still talking about this a week later, which is just a testimony to the power of like what a crazy cultural moment it was. That I think that Will should probably just sit down for like a minute, right? Just complete total silence, off the grid. America loves a comeback story. I don't think that his career is over, although in witnessing it, when I first saw it is definitely one of the things that crossed my mind. But, I do think he needs to take some time, reflect, let people like kind of process. I do hope that he has a direct conversation with Chris Rock at some point, and yeah, that's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. I agree with you. I don't think things like that are career canceling especially in institutions like Hollywood. And yeah, I'm curious what comes of it. I'm definitely, I looked at our coverage on Ambrosia for Heads, and a lot of folks were really supportive in their comments of the fact that we pointed out, as that transpired, Summer of Soul took a win, and that's really important. And we, put those on equal heading because that was one of the reasons that, tuned into the Oscars in the first place. We're always looking for representation in hip hop, important film, shout out to Questlove and that whole movement, Joseph Patel, everyone else. But yeah, that was last week, and now we're on to the Grammys. Award season continues.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one last thing. So it is unfortunate that what happened did happen because it was such a great moment for hip hop at the Oscars. We saw the Oscars take over the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year with Jay-Z's induction.
You mean hip hop takeover?
So yeah, hip hop's takeover with the induction of LL Cool J and Jay-Z, and having Dr. Dre on stage, and having Eminem. Dave Chappelle and Eminem, and all these folks that really showed that hip hop culture is now the dominant culture. We've seen that with the Super Bowl, with Dre's takeover, Dre Day at the Super Bowl. And, it happened with the Oscars too. It could have been the trifecta, with Will getting his Oscar, Quest getting his Oscar, with Diddy taking the stage to introduce The Godfather. It was just a real moment for hip hop. But it is what it is. I don't think it takes away from any of the accomplishments, and hip hop continues. The marathon continues. So in any case, tonight we got, or this weekend, we have a different award show, music's biggest night. Typically one that is very, very polarizing for hip hop. I'd say there's been promise shown over the last couple of years, at least in the nominees, because we've seen some acts like Freddie, Gibbs, and Alchemist, and Nas, and Royce, and J. Cole, and
Pusha T.
Yeah, absolutely. People who I think folks believe represent the true aspects of hip hop. not just top 40 radio. And listen, no knock on that. I'm saying it's been a broad spectrum of all the above. And even got the Nas win last year, which was, tremendous for King's Disease. I thought that was kind of a career achievement award in some sorts, and we talked about that last year. We won't get into it again, but no doubt a great album. I actually think the King's Disease 2, which was nominated this year, was an even better album than that. So I thought Nas had a good chance at winning. But before we get into the results, what did you think about the show overall?
This year it just felt a little bit like back to the old way. There was some odd kind of choices. One of the motifs that they used this year is kind of trying to showcase the people behind the scenes, roadies, wardrobe designers, we're kind of introducing a lot of acts. On one hand, I think that has great intentions in mind. I don't know that conveyed very well on screen. I'm a big fan of Trevor Noah. I'm not a Daily Show watcher on the Daily, but through social media, through his memoir, like over the years, I've really come to appreciate Trevor Noah. And I don't think that he was the most charismatic host. I think he did the job and his shots landed, but it wasn't like one where there was maybe it was tucked back a little bit after last week, but this wasn't one that was filled with a lot of laughter. What about you?
Yeah, it's the first time in a while we haven't had LL Cool J as the host. So man, every year I go in thinking that it's going to be boring, a dud. I've actually been to several Grammys. I got to say that in-house, it is the most pristine sound I've ever heard in an arena. Wow. I've been to the Staples Center maybe 6 times or so, and it is crystal clear. It's an amazing environment. I've actually been on the floor. Like I had one of the craziest times of my life as I was with AJ, and we sat in seat filler seats right behind Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, John Legend, and Chrissy Teigen. It's the year when Prince came out on stage. He came out right after we sat down, which is incredible. And that was just mind blowing. It was on TV the whole 9.
It was like 2014, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
I knew you. I remember because I'm watching and I think later you recirculated a screenshot, but I was like, that's incredible. I remember that, but you've never told me about the sound. That's so interesting. I wonder, that has to carry over regardless of venue because this one was in Vegas, which I have to believe is a first, right?
Yeah. First time in Vegas. I'm sure the sound was pristine, but I typically go in, from an AFH standpoint, thinking that it's going to be a non-event. And almost every year there's something that like is a huge story for us. And so this year I went in with the expectation there'd be a moment, there'd be something that came up. And I only think there was one moment that was noteworthy. And we'll get into that in a minute, but there was nothing else that moved me. That's not to say that there weren't good performances. I thought her with Lenny Kravitz was incredible. Lenny came in and showed, you don't do someone else's song when they're Lenny Kravitz, man. He came in and he said, yeah, thank you. I'll take my song back now. I thought it was kind of the 2022 version of what Prince and Beyonce did. I think that's what the Grammys was trying to achieve, I should say, when they had Beyonce singing Purple Rain with Prince. Now, that's Beyonce, and it was a magical moment seeing that duet. I thought her was great in her individual performance, but when Lenny came on, he definitely took over the stage, and just the power of the guitar, his voice, everything. He had a total rock star moment. I actually thought that the In Memoriam, the song, was incredible. They did a medley, I think, of all Stephen Sondheim music, or at least Sending the Clowns was Stephen Sondheim at the end. And
I didn't put that together. It makes all the sense in the world now.
Yeah. Sending the Clowns from A Little Night Music, incredible. The harmonies, man, were amazing. It was great to see Dua Lipa have a real authentic moment and, break down and say it was a big deal. It was awesome to see Silk Sonic win awards and go in with humility, but not so much. So there were definitely great moments, but from a rap perspective, I got to say for me, it was the most disappointing show in a minute.
Yeah. Kanye West not there. You know, it's been controversial in recent weeks. That not this particular year. Is it fair to say not welcome? Would you say?
Yeah, I think he was asked not to show up. There's rumors that they re-invited him at some point, but
interesting.
And
then you and I were talking about it because obviously this weekend coincides with Dreamville Fest, and put together that J. Cole would not be in attendance. And I don't know that I think J. Cole has said on record he attended early in his career, right? But throughout the last 5-6 years, J. Cole has been a no-show. And I thought that might change this year. I think you and I speculated that when the nominees were announced, given how many categories he was in, and they were his categories, not Dreamville categories like there were a couple years ago, and Cole winning his first Grammy by way of a 21 Savage, the feature for a lot. So, Nas obviously in the building. Don't think Tyler, the Creator, was in the building either, right?
No, I don't think so.
So visually, it was very different. One question I want to ask you, just as we talk about hip hop and representation for the in memoriam, for Virgil Abloh, which, we covered a couple of things in his life, when he was named creative director, obviously his passing on AFH, they listed him as hip hop fashion designer. And I couldn't tell, curious of your take. I watched the awards in a room alone. On one hand, I'm like, I like that they connected him to the culture, but his impact on fashion is so much bigger than just hip hop. How do you feel about that?
So many thoughts go through my mind when you say that. So my immediate reaction was, man, there you go, qualifying it. Like, I see it the same as like someone saying, a great female MC. No, right. It's a great MC who happens to be female. So that's my first thought. Virgil, when he passed away, was the designer for men for Louis Vuitton, and so that is the cream of the crop. You don't get any bigger in terms of fashion, period. So Virgil was a designer, a pristine designer of the highest sorts. But my second thought was, wait a minute, let me not discount what hip hop is and what it means to culture, period. And right now, and for the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, hip hop has been culture and defined culture and led culture. So, I guess I'm mixed. Depends on what the intention is, but it's definitely not a slight. He got his start in hip hop. It's what gave him what he has. And, like I said, hip hop drives culture now.
Yeah, and this is the Grammys. So if you just put somebody and say, fashion icon, fashion designer, people may say, well, what's the connection to music? And, well, he did all of those things on that level. He was also somebody that designed album covers for Kanye West and for, Kid Cudi and West Side Gun. So maybe that word was a reminder. But like you, I kind of had similar thoughts. I'll tell you, as we say who wasn't there, one thing that I thought was cool, and it was when Joni Mitchell and Bonnie Raitt were presenting. They, panned the crowd for a minute. Grandmaster Flash and Grandmaster Melly Mel. I mean, I love seeing the legends being in the building. And also, we've covered it a little bit on the site, but the fact that those two men were sitting next to each other, there's a long history there, despite all of the things that they've accomplished with the Furious Five. Those are two strong egos and two leaders within that group, and to see them, what appearing to be side by side, I just thought was a really dope moment that might be lost on some people.
Yeah, that was great to see, man. And I presume they were there. They showed them when they were giving out the Lifetime Achievement Award. And they had gotten that. They'd been given that, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, something like that. I think Public Enemy and some other folks have gotten that Lifetime Achievement Award.
Interesting.
Am I remember that correctly?
I know they were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I can't say that I remember the Lifetime Achievement Award, but that doesn't mean that they didn't do it.
Yeah, I think they got it.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. But it was great to see them. I wish they'd gotten a chyron just so people would know who they were, because I don't know the average folks would realize who it was. But yeah, dope to see them. Going back to J. Cole and Tyler. So first of all, the Grammys were moved because an Omicron surge, got people nervous. They didn't want to have a big in-person event in February, so they pushed it back. to a date TBD. That date happened to fall on the same date as the Dreamville Festival. I have to believe that festival date was set a year ago, or certainly several months before this. So even if Cole had wanted to be there, he couldn't have been, because I checked. He headlined, it was a 2-part festival, and he headlined today's. And so it would have been a direct conflict. So that in itself is like, almost like another sort of disrespect. Having done these award shows for a number of years, I know that, folks work it out with artists to make sure that those that are important are able to be. There's no conflict. And, that takes some maneuvering on both sides, but you don't do it when a person has got like a festival or a show or something like that, if you really want them to attend.
He's nominated in 4 categories. I mean, are you gonna do it to Olivia Rodrigo? Like, it doesn't seem right. And I know that Cole has never, probably in the Recording Academy's estimation, been a visual draw, because that's just, he places value on other things. But I think going into it, when these awards were announced late last year, you and I looked at this as a possible inflection point, and we're going to talk about in the categories what we thought deserved the win. And I thought in many ways, this was an important statement year for J. Cole and Dreamville.
Yeah. And for Tyler, he won 2 years ago. Was it Igor?
Yeah.
And he himself was baffled because he didn't believe that project to be a hip hop album.
Yeah.
And so he accepted the award, but, but was almost with some disdain as to like, and this goes back to your point about, qualifying Virgil as a hip hop producer. He's like, why are y'all putting this? I'm an artist who has done hip hop in the past, but I did not do hip hop this album.
Right.
So why are you making it a hip hop album? And I won. So I'm wondering if him not showing up is a bit of a form of protest on his side too.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too, because Call Me If You Get Lost, I mean, is far closer to hip hop and rap, even in its spirit. I mean, we're going to talk about Gangsta Grills later tonight, but this in a kind of revival trend, DJ Drama hosts the project. It's got Tyler spitting bars in a few places. And I don't want to say anything too early, but that was what was celebrated tonight. And yeah, I think it's very interesting that he decided not to be there, because he is somebody who historically plays to the cameras, whether he's got something to say or just wants to be silly. So
all right. So let's go through the categories. Let's talk about the nominees, who we thought should win, and who actually won. Mm-hmm. And then let's talk about, in the end, let's talk about what we thought was the biggest hip hop moment of the night.
Facts.
So first up is best rap performance, and that is you have the nominees.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So the competition for that, for best rap performance, was Cardi B with Up, J. Cole, 21 Savage, and Morray with My Life, Drake, Future, and Young Thug with Way Too Sexy, and Meg Thee Stallion with Thought-ish. As well as Baby Keem and Kendrick Lamar for Family Ties. So going into this, did you have a pick in the category?
It's a tough one, man. If I'm going with who I thought would win, just based on commercial impact and just how things seem to go with the Grammys, I'm going with Cardi Up, because that was just an inescapable record. It was Cardi. She's definitely a Grammy darling. That's what I would have predicted to win, what I would have thought should have won. My Life is, I think, my favorite song on the off season. And as I've said many, many times, I thought the off season was the best album this year, the best rap album. So, but man, Family Ties. Wow, that is such a crazy record. And the more I listen to it, the more I love Keem's verse, which when I listen to it more closely sounds like a Kendrick verse. And I'm wondering if you think that Kendrick wrote both parts of that. Question for you. But second thing is Kendrick's verse was like, it generated a news cycle. It was his only verse. we've had in a couple of years or so. And wow, what a big one it was. It was a statement. It put PG Lang on the map. It helped put Keem on the map. He commentated on the pandemic, on, you know, the use of his name to like generate social gimmicks, the whole nine. It was just a really incredible verse. And the video was dope too. So as much as I love My Life, I probably would have given it to Keem and Kendrick for Family Ties. How about you?
Same. In this one, and I mean, this is one of those places where there's other categories that kind of overlap in spirit, but best rap performance. You know, I completely agree with you that My Life is a centerpiece within the off season. I think it is top tier hip hop. When I think of performance, I got to think of, you know, there's a certain level of action to it. And, you know, Family Ties has been stuck in my head since August when it released. I look at that, I look at the video, I look at, you know, I think of that action word of performance. I would have been happy with either winner. That would have been my choice though, Family Ties, and that is what won. So I think this was a place that you and I both, you know, were at least pleased. And, you know, it should be said, this was one of the awards that was televised. And Kendrick not in the building. Keem went up solo dolo, received the award, very kind of short to the point speech, shouted out Dave Free, shouted out some other staffers at PG Lang, never mentions PG Lang by name, but just says, you know, my record company or my team. But I thought, you know, I believe that PG Lang is going to be around for a really long time and really kick in some doors and brand itself. I think they already have. That video showed that, but I think this will be an interesting moment as far as that company's relationship to the Grammys. Boom, you just broke the ice.
So given the sort of disrespect that I think that we both share, belief that J. Cole has received at the end of the Grammys, do you think that if Family Ties had been Baby Keem featuring J. Cole, it would have gotten the nod?
Boy, that's a hard one, because I look at this one, you know, the Grammys love Kendrick, but that song, you know, Kendrick brought his A game, and so did Keem. I think that this record is really something special. And like you said, and I'm not deflecting, I think that this song is so interesting because it is a really well done intersection of two or more totally different styles of rap. When I first heard it, Keem was on that onomatopoeia, you know, screechy voice, kind of real short verses, not the stuff I listen to for pleasure. You know, at my age, at my relationship with hip hop, I like a little bit more. But Kendrick came in with bars. And after listen, hearing other people listen, watch this record take on a new life, I've really come to appreciate the Keem's part, like you said. And then when you hear other songs in that, I think it kind of primed me for a movement that's going on that I'm still trying to understand and appreciate from my vantage point. I think this is a really special record. And, you know, I think it's so special that I want to believe that personnel didn't have, you know, everything to do with it. It had a huge video to it. You know, Keem has been around. He's made some noise from years before, but this is his Grammy introduction. So I'm gonna answer your question and say I'm gonna say this record defies just the name thing, if that makes sense.
So the record is absolutely crazy, and it's two different beats, two spectacular performances. And no, there's no. I'm not. So what I'm getting at is not a critique about the record at all, because we both said we think we deserved it. It deserved the win. But what I'm saying is that J. Cole has made incredible music, that has either been outright ignored, like KOD, and which both of us, I think, thought was the best album of that year, and it wasn't even nominated. You know, and save for, like you said, the 21 Savage record, he has not gotten a win. So what I'm saying is that do the Grammys have like a grudge? Is it? I think there's a fundamental lack of respect for J. Cole, and they need to put some respect on his name.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, folks have voted in the Grammys, you know, and they've tried to do this a little bit differently in the retolling, right? Like not the same people that are voting for, you know, classical album or jazz performance are not voting here, right? Like they kind of have sectioned it out. Am I correct by your understanding with that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. If so, that's a huge improvement. It used to be that everyone could vote on everything, so I'm not sure.
It's one of the things that I've heard. And, you know, even before that, you know, the Grammys brought in, you know, Ninth Wonder, and they brought in a host of other people to kind of really try to keep the cultural integrity for hip hop. And when you have that, you know, a name like Kendrick is always going to be to a more distant hip hop fan, it's always going to be a few levels higher than J. Cole. And one of the things that I was excited about with tonight's Grammys is that that could change it. I mean, you're never going to get J. Cole right now to do a Grammy performance. It just doesn't seem like it's him. But to answer your question, I think there's love there. You know, it was a year ago, I think, right? When Down Bad, you know, Revenge of the Dreamers 3 got some love. It was up for Best Rap Album. And Down Bad was kind of a family ties of its year. I mean, a little bit different, but you had Boss, you had JID, like everyone was spitting differently. And I thought that this is a great way to kind of usher in some new artists and again capture that intersection. It didn't win, but this one did. And you know, Kendrick, Cardi, Tyler, Little Nas X, there's always some names that are always pushed to the top. And for whatever reason, J. Cole just cannot seem to do that. You know, we ran a podcast last year. J. Cole is the Tim Duncan of hip hop. And boy, oh boy, is that true when you look at something like the Grammy Awards.
Word. All right. So next up is Best Melodic Rap Performance. And in that, Speak of the Devil, you had J. Cole featuring Lil Baby, Pride is the Devil. Mm-hmm. You had Doja Cat, Need to Know, Lil Nas X featuring Jack Harlow, Industry Baby, which, by the way, was another highlight performance for me. I thought they were dope. I think everything Lil Nas X does is super entertaining, and I just love how provocative he is. You had What's Your Name, Tyler, the Creator, featuring Young Boy, Never Broke Again, and Ty Dolla $ign. And then you had Kanye West featuring The Weeknd and Lil Baby, Hurricane. So of that, who do you think should win? Who did you think would win, and who do you think should have won?
I actually thought this year that it would probably go to Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow. You know, and to your point, I mean, this is a newer category. I think that record more than delivers what the category calls for. I listened to the Doja Cat record because that was huge too, and there's really only about like 12 bars of rapping in the song. And I know that is a giant gray area, but I think it's another case of kind of what you said about Tyler or what we're saying about Virgil, of like, you know, Doja Cat is a melanated woman and they're lumping her in this category. I didn't think that one was right. To answer your question, I thought Lil Nas X would win. What I wanted to win 100% was J. Cole, because I think J. Cole was playing by the formula that was given to him. You want to win a record, I think he made the best record, and I think he deserved the win with Lil Baby.
He made a great record, and he did it with one of the hottest dudes in hip hop right now, Lil Baby. I shared your belief that Industry Baby would win it. Is a monster record. Lil Nas X, you know, just can't lose right now. And Jack Harlow is gigantic too. The video was crazy, really controversial, was in people's ears. I was very surprised that it did not win. Mm-hmm. The actual winner was Hurricane, Kanye featuring The Weeknd and Lil Baby. That was a shock to me. Yeah. You know, I will say that I've listened to Donda more and more, and the more I listen to it, the more I like it, and it continues to open up to me. But in that category with that competition, I did not expect Kanye to win. And I didn't expect Kanye to win anything, actually, given his behavior of late. So that was a total surprise to me.
Yeah, I share your sentiments. I listened to Donda, but I listened to kind of my Donda Redux. And while I like that song when the album first dropped, it's not one of my favorites. And it's not one that I honestly believe has penetrated culture on its own. You know, you look at all of the other records and they're out there. You know, they're out there on their own. Kanye, I mean, but so much of the Donda rollout was just an anomaly. But I'm like, you're just picking a record on Donda to throw in the category, and then for it to win was shocking. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, this category was not televised. Kanye is not there, and it's not like I don't think The Weeknd was there either. I didn't even see Little Baby. I think this award was just announced, on Twitter before 8 o'clock, East Coast when the show started.
And think about how bizarre that is. Rap is still the biggest genre in music. And of that, melodic rap is by far the most commercially successful and, dominates the streaming platforms and all that stuff. So it's absurd that you're not going to have a performance, first of all, of several people. And secondly, you're not even going to televise it. That is crazy to me. So again, these are just examples to me of how this was a setback year for the Grammys, and very disappointing after recent progress.
Very well said. Now, the two biggest categories, I think, for AFH type hip hop fans, folks like you and me, are always song and album, and the song category has changed a little bit over the years. There's history there, but the two of like, what is the song and what is the album? So we'll do song next. The nominees were DMX featuring Jay-Z and Nas, Bath Salts, Saweetie featuring Doja Cat, Best Friend, again, Keem and Kendrick, Family Ties, Kanye and Jay-Z, Jail, and then again, you have J. Cole, 21 Savage, and Moray, My Life. So for you, did you, same question we've been asking, did you have somebody, a song that you thought would win and one you were rooting for?
Yeah, I mean, so the song I was rooting for was Bath Salts, question. That's the song that, folks might remember was leaked back in 2015 or so, 2016, in a beat battle between Timbaland and Just Blaze. And that version actually had Jadakiss on it too. And so when that finally came out, that was amazing to me. And we talked about it on a podcast. I heard it in a bodega, as playing on the radio, and somebody was cutting it up. So I thought it would be amazing to see X get that. And I actually thought that he might get it, because I think that was the only category he was nominated for.
Yeah.
And given his passing, I thought that he would be the favorite in that category. What about you?
I went back and forth with it. For as big of a record as that is, and not to be overly corrective, but because our readers and we all pay attention to the comments. It was 2017 that I first heard it, and that beat battle, if I'm not mistaken, was Just versus Swizz. There were other battles, I think, that involved Tim.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And but that record, you and I got really excited about it. I think it is absolutely a focal point of Exodus, the posthumous DMX album, but it didn't quite penetrate culture. But then again, you look at Nas winning last year, which I think both of us were happy about, both of us could understand. And this is Nas winning a Grammy, 25 years too late. And I'm like, X, is he going to get his moment? So I could see it happening, but I wasn't going to bet the ranch on it. This was another area where I didn't expect Keem and Kendrick to win both. But rap song and rap performance, that gets very gray. I wanted that song to remember the year by. I felt it was deserving of one. That being said, also 100% true of My Life, the J. Cole record. And I'm like, I could see one going one category and one going to the other. And as I just explained, I kind of put Keem and Kendrick in the performance. And I thought, okay, Cole, 21, Moray, this is their moment. And Moray was there. I don't know if 21 Savage was there. And the winner was, Kanye and Jay-Z with Jail. So, how did you feel about that? Because I think both, am I fair to say both you and I really do like that song quite a bit?
I like the song a lot. It's probably my favorite song on Donda. Definitely my favorite song on Donda. And, it's a song about, it's an anti-cancel culture song. It's a song about redemption. So I appreciate the themes in it too. Kanye's gone controversial with it, with remakes with Marilyn Manson and DaBaby, both of whom have been canceled for different reasons in recent years. But I gotta say, I don't think it was the best song. I think Family Ties was probably the best song. I thought that Bath Salts would be the sentimental favorite. So My Life, I thought was ahead of that too. So to get Jail in there was really surprising for me.
I'm with you. Out of the 5 songs, this would have been number 4 in my rankings. As much as I agree with you, I think it's a highlight of Donda. I don't think Donda is that captivating album for Kanye West. I think it was a moment. I think its rollout was incredible. But I would rather, I mean, especially if you're talking about Jay-Z features and momentous songs, even though the streaming numbers might not be there, bath salts above jail. And yeah, this one was wild to me again. And it's crazy to me that you're not going to see the best rap song category televised. And I'm very curious, and I don't know that you have the answers, but like, how late in the game when they look at attendance sheets, and obviously they knew more than a week or two ago that Kanye was not there, although you made the point that there were grumblings of a last minute, okay, come back. But that has to restructure so much of the pacing of the whole show that this category is not going to air.
Yeah, I think if Ye is there, if the last few weeks of him going at Kim and Pete Davidson the way he had not happened, I think he performs. I think they air at least best rap song and possibly melodic too, since he would be in attendance. And yeah, you're right. It changes the entire flow of the show. But because they didn't have anyone representative of the categories of major significance, they did have both Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow there, so I'm surprised that one was not aired.
Yeah, Sweetie was there, Doja Cat was there.
Yeah.
But it's very, very, very strange to me, and I wonder when voting stopped, because if voting still mattered, into the Pete Davidson saga, regardless of who can vote on what categories, you have to believe is as much as that is unrelated to the music, people's taste in their mouth, people's feelings of artists changes, and it's just a wild thing. But Kanye continues to rake in the Grammys despite a very complicated relationship with the Academy.
Yep, absolutely.
So the big moment, for hip hop heads is always best rap album. And to your point at the top of the podcast, this has been one that I've really started to appreciate the opening up of categories in the last 2 or 3 years. And we did a whole piece in December, great podcast video on the biggest snubs this year, and not just we talked about Busta Rhymes. I mean, massive snub, and Benny the Butcher, and I even advocated, and you kind of agreed that somebody like Evidence, who has a Grammy, deserves a look if we're going to be inclusive of independent artists. But anyway, the categories were cemented last year, or the nominations were. They are J. Cole, The Off Season, Drake, Certified Lover Boy, Nas's King's Disease 2, Tyler the Creator, Call Me If You Get Lost, and Kanye West, Donda. Going into this, and I have a feeling we feel the same. Did you have
but Drake was nominated, but Drake was eventually pulled. He pulled himself. So it was only 4 people, J. Cole, Nas, Tyler, and Kanye.
And thank you for that.
Yeah. Going in, I thought, this one was really just a wild card for me. So I didn't have any way to predict it. So I thought The Off Season was the best album of the year. And for me, that should have been the winner. I think it stands with J. Cole's best. I think it's a top 3 album for him. And he is an MC who's at the top of his craft right now. He's been as prolific as Drake, which is saying a lot, at least in terms of album output, not necessarily singles. Much more prolific than Kendrick, but I think much more critically sound than Drake, and up there with Kendrick. He doesn't have, although KOD was incredibly thematic too, like Damn. So there's no knock. Cole is insane right now, and I think especially given this mixtape we'll talk about and the features he's had, the dude is really in the GOAT conversation right now for his generation. And he made a GOAT level album. And so for me, it was The Off Season by far. No shade to Nas King's Disease 2, which I think was a much better album than King's Disease, which was my favorite Nas album in quite some time. Donda, is sprawling at 2 hours long with the deluxe. I think it's way too long. Could have been cut in half and then been a really solid album. Tyler, I was not a fan of that album. I know it went back to his rap roots, but It's probably my least favorite Tyler album in quite some time. But how about you? What did you think would win? And what did you want to win?
Yeah, both were cool. I would have accepted a Nas win. Shout out to Drake for whatever reasons, he withdrew. I was not a CLB fan like that. I thought that Tyler had like 2 or 3 really good songs on Call Me If You Get Lost. I mean, there's a lot of people I respect that hear a very different album than I do, and they love it. And I've always, I've appreciated the albums that Tyler's done that have kind of been outside of rap. I thought Igor was really interesting. I thought Flower Boy was incredible, but they veer. I mean, they go different places. This is a return to rap, and much like, Tyler early in his career, he can give you 3 like incredible songs, but it's stitching them together that sometimes I personally get lost. So yeah, I was 100% team Cole, but for reasons you stated, I think KD2 may be better than KD1 for Nas. I don't think there has been a back-to-back winner in this category, in history. I just had a feeling this was Cole's moment, and the winner was Tyler, which again, and I blocked off tonight to tune in, and then I was reading online and I saw the tweet from the Grammys, and again, this category doesn't air. I mean, this is a massive category, from Cardi B winning it in 2019 to, I think it was 2019, to obviously the Macklemore year. Like, this is wild, and just really, really interesting stuff that this didn't air. And I'm disappointed for J. Cole in a lot of ways about tonight, but this is the one that, to me, is really, really just tone deaf on the voting part.
It's absurd that the album award for the biggest genre in music is not televised. That's absolutely absurd. It's strange that only one of the 4 nominees, or one of the initial 5 nominees, showed up. But that is also a testament to like how this is just how the Grammys have gotten it wrong so many years. They've alienated all the top contenders, and until they stop doing things like not airing the show and giving it to the wrong people, they're never going to get the biggest drawing people. Like, to not have Drake and Jay-Z and Kanye and folks like that at the show is huge. It like diminishes the ratings, diminishes the star power, diminishes the credibility. So you got to get it together,
And for me, I mean, I love a performance as much as the next, and we'll talk about performances and then we'll get done with the Grammys. But there was a lot of performances, and I'm like, you can get 2 or 3, categories off. That's what I tune in for. I mean, I'm a music head. I want to, and regardless of what I think of the gravitas of the Grammys, I know that it can be a level up for artists. They can bring awareness to them for the rest of their lives. They're Grammy Award winning. Our perceptions change regardless of what we think of the trophy itself. And to some extent, it just kind of turns in a little bit to just a variety show with the music, and that's always disappointing to me. And I really, I'll be damned if next year they don't televise that category, even if the nominees are not there. Send DJ Drama up, just accept the award on behalf of the Academy, but televise it, make that moment matter, because all year long, CBS and the rest of popular culture take so much from hip hop and rap music.
Yeah, I understand why there's so many performances. That's the big draw, or at least it used to be. Performances are not as rare or special as they used to be because you can see anything you want on YouTube. So really they should pivot, because what's special is getting people to give these great speeches and crazy speeches. And last week is a testament to like how anything can happen during a speech. Those are the moments now that are rare, not the performances. So I do think that it's a balance to your point. They could shorten some of the performances without sacrificing any, and allow for another category or 2. And again, this doesn't have to be the really esoteric awards and stuff like that, because I agree, no one wants to see those. But for the biggest genre in music, you should air the biggest award for that genre. That's just common sense to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what it was. And I think that's a really good point. some other just, Ninth Wonder, Terrence Martin, Kamisi Washington, Robert Glasper were up. They did not win in the alternative R&B category, I believe it is. Summer of Soul won again. So, Questlove, I think, is up to 6 Grammys now. Interesting night. You, in the way of performances, you alluded to it at the top, but I thought hers was really interesting. I did feel as though bringing out Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis for 10 seconds was that's disrespectful to me. I think they should have made that more of a jam, just like they do with Travis Barker, just like they do with other people. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. You got legends, and obviously she sampled or she replayed "Making Love in the Rain," which is a Herb Alpert song featuring Janet Jackson, produced by Jam and Lewis. And so that's the incorporation. But yeah, you got to have those dudes out there a little bit longer, man.
So after last year's win, in March, Nas got a performance. I shouldn't say got, like he, waited around to receive it, but one of the things that they did for 2022 was Nas was a performer. It was kind of hip hop's big moment. Why don't you tell us about that performance?
This was the victory lap, man. Nas got the award last year. We both have said that we think it was as much a career achievement award as it was for the album. And this year he got the career achievement performance. He came out, he had Robert Glasper, who you just mentioned, playing piano for him on the keys. And he had a little kids saying, "I Know I Can," to start it off. And then he comes out with "Made You Look." He rolls into One Mic, New York State of Mind, and then ends up with Rare, and and breaks it down in a way that was just super ill. It's as passionate and as clear a performance that I've seen from Nas in a long time. He recognized the moment. He owned the stage. He seized it, and he did it to show who he is in hip hop. And I thought that was the best moment of the night.
I think it's so interesting because so many folks would use that platform, especially of Nas level. I mean, this is a guy, here we are 31 years after Live at the Barbecue, and, people know who Nas is, even if he hasn't done a performance like this. But I believe Nas has performed at the Grammys in the past. I know he did the VMAs, the Murder Inc. year, and he's had big TV moments. But I kind of looked at this as like, why would he do the medley? And then I figured it out. Those songs of Made You Look, One Mic, in New York State of Mind, every one of them, Contest Me, I Dare You, they all should have at least competed for Grammys. None of them were nominated. One Mic was nominated for Best Video that year. But these were snubs. And I believe every one of them, I wouldn't be mad if it won those years. I'm thinking back of what those songs meant in the moment, what they competed against. And every time I look back and in the landscape, they were dominant. So I feel like Nas was kind of having the last laugh. And then to your point, Rare. So, Rare is not one of my favorite songs on KD2. I think it's up there. It's definitely in my favorable half of the album, more favorable. But that performance made me want to play that song 20 times tomorrow. Like, he delivered it. And obviously with the live band, it sounds different. And I love that in hip hop, because we don't always think that like you can really jam out a song and perform it differently. But when it's done on that level, that well, it really gives life to a deserving song. And I think Rare is just that, because I'm watching and I'm like, oh, what is it? Oh yeah, this is Rare. He killed it. He killed it.
So I totally agree with you that the 3 songs he did from his catalog were absolutely statements about how he was overlooked. And so, I'm always, and I share your point about Rare too, because this was an opportunity to do a song with Lauryn Hill. He could have done My Bible. There were a lot of songs he could have done. So my mind always goes to, why did he choose that song, right? And so when you start to look at some of the lyrics from Rare, he says, "Yo, I'm in rare form. People speak down on my name like I wasn't there." And then he says, "Musically, I'm on Mars, walking all over the beat, putting my feet on the stars. I rock it like Lenny," who happened to be there. This is Nas like flexing. This is Nas like, just straight up, doing this Hulk Hogan on folks and letting them know who he is after showing them, this is what you missed out, and this is who I am right now. I'm rare. So I thought it was an incredible statement from one of hip hop's biggest icons, top 5 icon for sure. Owning the stage like it was his, it was almost like his Busta Rhymes VMAs moment, where he just reminded the world, that he's been overlooked and he wasn't going to stand for it. So I loved it, man. I loved it all.
It was really cool. And it's funny, I always tease you because you when we've done interviews in person with artists, you're always complimenting people on their fitness regime and their ability to defy age. And Nas looks like he's 25. He's doing the braids. I mean, the kid during the ICANN part, that was supposed to be Nas. And one of the real winners of tonight's Grammys was the double-breasted suit, man. Those are back in a major way. And Nas just looked epic and iconic and cool. Like, and I've had that relationship with Nas since 94, 95, and it's just great to see. So
for sure. Silk Sonic went 4 for 4. I think we mentioned that, but I'll say it again. Really happy for those guys. Anderson .Paak, man, he's had a great run. Doing that with Bruno, I think was phenomenal. And they've performed on last year's Grammys as well.
That's right.
It was right when Leave the Door Open had come out. Then they performed on the BET Awards too. That album has grown on me over time. I really love that album now. They've got a Vegas residency now, so it's probably an easy get for them too. But to see Anderson .Paak on the Super Bowl stage and winning 4 Grammys, you and I have talked about this guy now since he first came out. We were one of the first to talk about him. He did the DJ premiere. I think it was a collaboration, or if not, Primo's one of the first dudes to kind of like call attention to it. Our family, Amanda Mester, Bonita, knows him personally and had been trying to put us on for a minute too. There was a stretch where I saw 15 of his shows in about a year's time. Still one of the most dynamic performers I've ever seen. And I've seen Prince, I've seen Bruno, I've seen a lot of like really dope folks, and this guy is up there. So to see him get his recognition now, both critically and commercially, I think is super dope.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. Tonight's Grammys really made it about Anderson. And obviously, Trevor Noah had a joke about that, because Bruno has been a Grammy darling for years. I remember, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago when Anderson and J-Rock, each got their first Grammys. We did a story. And now here he is at the 4 for 4. And, he was kind of the front man and Bruno played the back just in terms of airtime and all of that. And it's incredible to see. And Silk Sonic, it's come out through Aftermath in conjunction with, I think, Atlantic. But again, I mean, you're starting to see, even though Dre isn't all over these records, this is still part of that dynasty. And it's really cool. They re-released the album with the deluxe version. I sent it to you recently, and they did a cover of Love's Train by Confunction. And oh my God, like I might like that as much as Leave the Door Open. And I think the original is still the one, but these guys are so crazy. And it reminds me a little bit of Gnarls Barkley. With every award show, every public appearance, they find a different way. And tonight, Anderson with the Lawrence Fishburne, Ike Turner wig was that was a moment.
He's a wild boy, man. He's a wild boy. Yo, so that was the music of last year. It's actually been a pretty good couple of weeks for music too. We want to talk about a couple highlights that have piqued your ears?
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to the big one, but there's I'll plug it like this. Pause. The AFH playlist is in an incredible spot, and there's a lot of music that's come out over the last 3 to 4 weeks that is really, 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 I think, attention getting. I mean, shout out to Cypress Hill. And by the way, they have a documentary later this month on Showtime that Sasha Jenkins and other people are part of. Appropriately airing on 420. So I got the TiVo set for that. but they put out an album called Back in Black, produced by Black Milk. And they've started to release songs over the last like year and a half, just loosies here and there. But I think, you know, it's one of the best Cypress Hill albums in quite some time. And I'm a huge Muggs fan, salute to him, but Black Milk came in there and kind of met them halfway, and it's just got a great thump to it.
Yeah, it was hard for me to pick less than like four. I think I put 4 songs in there, 3 or 4 at least, and I could have put 5 or 6. I think it's one of Black Milk's best produced albums in quite some time since his I think it was the Fever album. Which one was it that had that album I loved, and this one is just as strong. And Be Real sounds phenomenal, and both him and Sin. But like, I think that's one of Cypress's best albums in a decade or so.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Black Milk, I mean, apart from his own music, you know, I mean, we all knew him from Random Acts and doing stuff with BR Gunna and Slum Village, but it's a rarity at this point for Black to do a whole album. And you would have never in a million years, you know, guessed Cypress Hill. You know, new joints from Buddy off of his Super Ghetto album, Denzel Curry with Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. What a dope title. I've been playing the Phife Dawg record, which came out too posthumously, called Forever. And I've really enjoyed that. He's got Knots on there and Ninth Wonder and on the production, as well as Busta Rhymes, Redman, Q-Tip, Little Brother, Plug One. You know, it's a really enjoyable album if you want to celebrate the life of Phife. And he was much like DMX with Exodus. He had been working on that album for years when he passed. And then the other one, 2 other ones I want to shout out. Elzhi, we talk about Black Milk. Him and Elzhi, you know, have a lot of history together. He's got a new album called Zeitgeist, produced by Georgia Ann Muldrow. And she has been doing her thing for years, was like a ground floor mellow music group, MC, producer, musician, has gone on to do so much on her own. But, you know, she's produced for Erykah Badu. She's produced for, you know, a number of people. And damn, I mean, and Elzhi's worked with some heavy hitters like Crisis, but this is my favorite Elzhi produced record since The Preface, which was more than a decade ago. And I really, really feel this joint.
Wow. I was going to say since Lead Poison, because there's a couple joints on there that, you know, that really, really kill me. Was it,
trying to think of it. I remember, yeah.
You know that joint. And there's another one on there. There's a couple on that album, but this one is incredible. Another one where I had really a tough time like scaling it down to like 3 or 4 joints that are on the playlist. But I agree, man. She's a beast, Georgia Ann Muldrow, and sounds great with Elzhi. Really great.
And then I also want to give a shout out to Marlon Craft, who, you know, a lot of people talk about this emerging class. You know, obviously you've got, and it's not emerging anymore, but Joey Badass over the last 10 years kind of brought attention to what was going on in the New York underground of people that just like beats and rhymes. And Marlon has been somebody over the last 5 years. He's from Hell's Kitchen. He's been working with Dante Ross, you know, has kind of put his arm around him and is guiding him. But he put out a joint in the last week called Hans Zimmer. It's produced by Havoc from Mobb Deep. And that beat and those rhymes, like Marlon is one of those guys that can veer a little melodic in recent years. This marriage of hard beats and hard rhymes, it's been just an incredible record. I texted it to you this week, but yeah, I mean, as far as new music, that's that.
216s. That was the
Elzhi joint.
Elzhi joint. Yeah.
But as far as new music, there's an elephant in the room, and I'm gonna hand it over to you to talk about it.
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit. So J. Cole has his Dreamville festival this weekend, featuring, you know, all the artists from Dreamville. We've talked quite a bit over the years about, you know, who's the best label or best collective in hip hop right now. And,
Crew, yeah.
You know, TDE, but obviously losing Kendrick is definitely going to kind of change that a bit. But I think Dreamville is right up there and arguably maybe even better. You know, you've got Cole, you've got JID, who is just a spitter. You got Boss, you got Loot, who's ridiculous. You got Omen,
Earth Gang,
Earth Gang,
Cause.
they're Cause. I mean, it just really it's absurd the lineup they have. They're really, really crazy. And so they put out a mixtape this week, Gangsta Grill's mixtape called D-Day, featuring DJ Drama, doing, what Drama does. We heard him do that with Tyler to a lesser degree. It was a more refined kind of DJ Drama presentation, but this was straight like Gangsta Grill's mixtape. It was like, and they start off with this song called Stick, which is JID and J. Cole, and the sample.
Kenny Mason.
Kenny Mason, I believe the sample, and Sheck West. Yeah, I believe the sample is of Tekashi 6ix9ine. The stick part, I think that's 6ix9ine.
That's so interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and it's just super aggro, amped up, make you want to break stuff kind of record. And JID is incredible. He plays with his flow throughout. Sheck West is great verse. But then when Cole comes on, once again, he just demolishes the track, and they push his vocals way up in the mix. Mm-hmm. So you can hear him super clearly. And it sounds raw like a mixtape, but it's just phenomenal. That's followed up by Ghetto Gods Freestyle from Earth Gang. Boss comes up next with Lifestyle. Your favorite joint, Starting Five. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, Starting Five is really interesting to me because it's that crew record, and Drama makes this point throughout this mixtape that Dreamville's here for the smoke. And you mentioned TDE. I mean, Maybach Music Group over the last 10 years has been an incredible crew. Griselda, is in the building, and there's all of these different just movements. But this song, here's how I'm going to describe it. It's the La Flor La Fla, of 2022, of just all the different chambers within Dreamville, and they're killing it. And that's the one to me. Like, Stick was cool, but I kind of wait. All respect to all the others. It's an intersectional song about, like Family Ties. It has different levels for different type of listeners. I wait for the cool part. Starting Five to me is just end-to-end burner. Like, love that song. I think it's incredible. One thing overall about D-Day, the name of this mixtape, is Omen, man. So the first artist that I ever knew was on Dreamville besides J. Cole was Omen. And, MC producer, never has run to the spotlight. Always been a low-key dude. For as low-key as somebody like Lute is, Omen's even more. And at times, like, I've often wondered if he was going to be kind of like the GLC, like somebody who was there in the beginning, but, as the label rebrands and adds in new talent, like, do we start to lose that person? Or like the Lady of Rage. And instead, one of the things I love about this mixtape is Omen is all over it, and he's killing it. I mean, he has several of his own songs, but that's a great taste and a reminder of Dreamville trusting the process.
Yeah, I think this is going to be Omen's breakout moment. This is definitely the project that made me pay attention to him. So I'm looking forward to his next step. Lute, always love, but there are multiple songs. There might be 5 or 6 joints from this on the playlist. I could not contain myself, but it's 15 songs, goes 47 minutes, is very, very quick, and not a lot of stuff to skip. I think it's one of the better projects of the year so far. But you mentioned this before we close. There was also a new song. You mentioned Griselda. There's a new song by Freddie Gibbs called Ice Cream, featuring Rick Ross, which is a remake of sorts of the Raekwon joint. But there's some stuff that's been going on with Freddie Gibbs and Benny the Butcher, and this was made out to be teed up like it was going to be a diss record from Gibbs against Benny the Butcher. It did not seem to be that. There's some generic aggressive lines that could be against anyone. Maybe it's against Benny, but you want to give some context of what's going on with Benny and Freddie?
Yeah, I mean, when it first played out, there's things that I didn't catch, but over the last 2 years, I mean, let's not forget, Benny and Freddie are kind of sort of label mates. I mean, Empire is a movement that allows crews, it provides distribution, but Empire is leveling up and it's becoming a label too that's competing with the majors. two of its biggest stars, you know, Benny and Freddie. Freddie gets a Grammy nominated album with Alchemist last year. Benny, who also works closely with Alchemist, continues to thrive. We dedicated most of a recent episode to Tana Talk 4. But these guys have kind of, I feel like they're angling for who's upper hand. You know, Freddie brings Benny on tour a few years ago, but what happened recently is, you know, Freddie's manager had responded to a tweet by Westside Gunn in 2020 or 2021. Gunn was popping about like, yo, whose crew is more consistent? We put out all these albums. And Lambo, you know, Freddie's manager responded, you know, last I checked, we had Bandana and Alfredo in the same year. And that kind of was where the conversation ended. And then recently, you know, when Benny had that incident in Houston, where he, you know, was shot after an attempted robbery, there was some subliminal things said on social media by Freddie. In kind, Benny seemed to post some cryptic things when Gibbs had a run-in allegedly with Jim Jones in a Miami steakhouse. So these tensions build. Then far more recently, just in the last few weeks, Spotify, with their Green Room interview series, markets a quote from Benny that basically downplays his work with Freddie Gibbs. And all of a sudden, you know, Freddie is no stranger to conflict, social media, it starts to escalate. And both of these guys over the last, you know, it's died down a little bit, but have alluded to who's supreme, who's better, who's living what they rap, et cetera, et cetera. Gibbs has said, you know, I brought you on tour with me. Where's the gratitude? And like you said, this week, Gibbs said, I got bars coming. You know, I got bars for some people coming, and I'm paraphrasing. And this is all, you know, you can go to AFH and read the story and have the exact quotes. But yeah, Ice Cream dropped, and I didn't think it was the diss record that it was going to be. One point that I should add, Freddie's response to Benny lately made light of how Tana Talk 4 has not been as big as he thought it would be. You know, basically, you're dissing me to be promo for your album. Next time,
let's tell folks what Benny said too, because like when you first like told me about this, I really thought it was a non-story, like because all that Benny was in an interview, like you said, and they asked about the joint project that Gibbs and Benny were working on, whether that was going to come to light. And Benny just said that that opportunity came and went. That was it. That he that's all he said basically, is it came and went, and you know, just basically let folks know that season had passed. Gibbs sees it, and he says, basically, your album came and went, and like, keep my name out your mouth. There's a lot of people wanting people to keep their names out of their mouth this week. And Freddie Gibbs is another one. I didn't think it was that big a deal. Like that, the words, you know, came and went. I didn't see as being disrespectful or anything like that. It just was more descriptive than anything. Maybe it was said with a little attitude. I don't know, but I didn't see it as that big of a deal.
Yeah, I did. I mean, clearly to the point where both of these folks, you know, both of these camps have responded to each other. And let's not forget, I mean, you know, beef is good for business. And I think there's a competitive streak to both of these guys. Both of them are artistic representations of street crews. I always remember, man, it was like 2010. At the time I was with Hip Hop DX, and we put on a showcase at South by Southwest. Freddie Gibbs was one of our headliners. And some people, we were up top in like a VIP area, and some people down below said something. Freddie jumped over the balcony and was out. Like, he went after them and was out. Like, Freddie, and it's one of the reasons why people love him. I mean, the line with Freddie of fiction, you know, and reality is really thin. What he raps about is what he lives. And I think he's always up to say something that's super outspoken. We've all watched, you know, the way that he's trolled Jeezy over the years, over, you know, that not working out. I know for a fact Freddie has said things when he was an Interscope artist about Eminem that, you know, raised some flags at that time. he's always up for the smoke. And I don't think Benny is any different. I think that Benny has come into hip hop as, a super hardworking, nice guy, representation of the underground. We haven't really seen Benny bump heads, but this is that. And I have a feeling that both of these guys are kind of jockeying for similar real estate in hip hop. Obviously, Gibbs has been known a bit longer, but I think it's fair to say they've both been rapping for, 15 plus. So this is interesting, but obviously I say that with the caveat that I hope nothing serious comes of any of this. It doesn't seem that way. It just seems like these two guys are kind of puffing up their chests at each other. And what I really hope is that if it is an issue, that we get music out of it more than, cryptic social media messages.
Yeah, I hope they talk behind the scenes and work it out. Two of my favorite artists, for sure. I think they would make incredible music together. They have very similar ear for tracks. They've worked with both worked with Alchemist quite a bit, and I think he could do an album with the two of them that would just be incredible. I think Freddie would sound great on Derringer beats. I think there's a lot of opportunity, so I hope it comes back again.
Yeah, and it probably will. And if I know Empire, like I think I do, they get involved and check everybody just to make sure things are cool as well. But we'll see. I thought that was an interesting story, and I'm glad that we covered it. But I see your point. I mean, so often it's interesting because even things like Gibbs running in with Jim Jones, that's not things we covered. We didn't cover we didn't try to connect the social media stuff that was going on following Benny's incident. Like, that's not what we do. But then to connect the dots and watch this happen, it's just interesting. So.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that said, what's your song of the week?
Man, I'm gonna go with another hardcore MC. I'm gonna go with my man Bumpy Knuckles, who put out a project, his second volume of, it's a production project, where it's all Bumpy beats. And for years, people might not know this, but Bumpy produced a lot of his own stuff. He would have Pete Rock, Alchemist, DJ Premier on there, but he would always use other names for his own stuff. Very accomplished musician and producer. But he's got a joint I texted to you this week called Green Seville. And it kind of has like a primo bop to it. But it's just been the voice in my head through the week. It's, I got a Green Seville and a will to win. Like, it's him looking back at his days in the street and his drive to be the MC. So I've been playing that one, nonstop. But what about you?
I gotta go with Stick, man. I was in from the moment I heard that song. I played it multiple times over the weekend. I'm trying not to burn it out, but it's incredible to me. Again, that's off the Dreamville D-Day Gangsta Grills mixtape. It features JID, Kenny Mason, Sheck West, and J. Cole, and I think it's super dope.
First song on our playlist. If you haven't, followed that, press play, enjoy. It is beautifully curated. And also, if you listen to these podcasts, so what's the headline? Please like us, rate us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you consume this. It helps get the message out to other people, man. But we hadn't done this in a while. And tonight, I'm so glad that we laid out a new episode, man. There was a lot to talk about.
Word, for sure. Yo, always a pleasure, man.
Likewise, until we do it again, all right?
Word.
All right, peace.
Peace.